ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. We continue with the Bani of Bhagat Kabir Ji in the Rag Asa. Rag Asa, Bani Bhakta Ki, and we are reciting the composition of Bhagat Kabir Ji. Asa Ikat Patar Bhar Urakat Kurakat, Ikat Patar Bhar Pani, आस पास पंच जोगिया बैठे बीच नकट दे रानी, नकटी को ठनगण बाडा डूं, किन्हे बिबेकी काटी तू, सगल माह निकटी का वासा, सगल मार औहेरी, सगलियां की हाँ बहन भाणजी, जिन्हें बरी तिस चेरी, हमरो भरता बड़ो विवेकी, आपे संत कहावै, ओ हमारे माथे कायम, और हमरे निकट न आवे, नाकों काटी कानों काटी, काट कूट के डारी, कहो कबीर संतन की वैरण, तीन लोक की प्यारी. In this passage, Kabir Ji begins with a description of, there is an imagery of two vessels, one filled with cooked chicken, the other filled with water, and around it are seekers, 5 seekers, and within them is the queen whose nose has been cut off or who does not have a nose. So this is an interesting imagery because it reflects contrast at various levels. So Ikat Patar Bhar Urakat Kurakat. Urkat Kurakat is chicken, cooked chicken, dangled chicken. Ikat Patar, Patar is patar, meaning a container, par pani. So the imagery that Kabir Ji is using can be understood at various levels. At the very first level, the way I understand it, it represents the bipolar state of the mind. At the second level, it makes a distinction between the material and the spiritual. And at the third, it contrasts the choices that confront us in daily life. What it is saying is that in all 3 scenarios, we require discernment or Vivek Buddhi. And Vivek Buddhi is the subject of this Shabad. So if you look at Gurmat, the mind is viewed as bipolar. It is a bridge between the body and the self. At one end is its ego consciousness, haume, which is tied to the body, identifies with the body, uses the brain to receive and process information through the senses to make that information intelligible. And at the other end of the mind is connected to the self through the link of what we call Daswadwar, that contains the discriminating intellect. So there's the material side, the non-material side of the mind. And in this imagery of 2 pots, one containing chicken, the chicken represents the entanglement and complexities of daily life, namely material desires, false attachments, moral confusion, and not to mention the distraction of sensory pleasures. That's what that chicken pot represents. Water, on the other hand, is a symbol for purity. It's a symbol for simplicity and wisdom. Now that is the innate state of the self, the mind. That is its natural state, sahaj. It is consciousness that is cleansing, that brings clarity. And a queen without a nose that stands for a mind that has no discretion and discernment, surrounded by the senses that are conduits to both the material and the spiritual. So in very one sentence, Kabir is saying a lot. He's speaking of the material and spiritual worlds. He's speaking of the choices that we have. He's speaking of the mind's ability to go in either direction and how Gurmat can enable us to realize the self. And then in the Rahao, he says, Nakti ko thangan bada du, kinhe bibeki kata hu. It takes a wise one to essentially cut the nose of this queen that is symbolized here for the mind. Thangan bada du. Again, even this has multiple connotations. At one level, it means, Thangan means the forehead. Bada is big. And Du is double. It signifies big. The other meaning of this line that we could understand it is, Thangan also means a chisel, a sharp chisel. So it stands for Maya, that actually chisels reality into duality. It tears it into two for the mind. The mind becomes fragmented. And it takes wisdom to actually overcome this illusion. Kinhe bibeki kati hu. It takes discernment. It takes wisdom to cut off the nose, so to speak. So you see a broad forehead, which is one connotation, in itself is associated with intelligence and perception on the one hand, but it also represents the ego's exaggerated sense of self. So you see, it represents both sides. So it's only the wise who are guided by Guru wisdom can overcome this ignorance. So this metaphor also symbolizes the pervasiveness of Maya. And it serves as a caution against allowing the ego to dominate one's spiritual journey. Emphasizes the need for humility, for balance, and deeper spiritual insight. Sagal mahe nikti ka vasa, nakti ka vasa, sagal mar avheri. Sagal mahe, it exists everywhere, ego, and it harasses everyone. Sagli ki hum behan panji, it asserts its relationship with everybody. I'm your sister, I'm your niece, but it says, Jinhe bari tisicheri, I am the servant to the one who can nurture me. In other words, I've been created by the Creator. And then Kabirji says, Hamro bharta bado bibeki aap sant kahave, o hamare mathe kaim aur hamre nikat na aave. Hamro bharta, my husband is very wise, meaning the self. It is the sant, from shant. O hamare mathe kaim. He's always standing over me. It's my protector, and therefore does not allow anyone to come near me. Nakko kaati, kanno kaati, kaat koot ke dari. So, with the help of the master, Kabir says, Kaho Kabir, santan ki baran. The sants are the ones who are eventually able to cast Maya away. They cut off its nose, its ears, and so on and so forth. So the mind has choices, and with Guru wisdom, we need to make the right choice. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.